Welcome to In the Know. I am Shamit Dua, joined by Jeremy. Coming at you from Vegas today. We're not able to have Mason on, but Jeremy's come back from a trip also to this part of the country, just not exactly Vegas. Coming back from Phoenix. How's it going?
I'm cooling off. It's hot over there where you at, bro.
It's unbelievable. The heat here. I think everyone's familiar with it. That has heard anyone speak on Vegas and any of these NBA podcasts or in any capacity, it is like walking into an oven. It is a very, very dry heat that will start baking you the second you walk out, and it's at all hours. It's at 10 p.m., 100 degrees. It's just
yes, that's exactly how it is over there in that desert.
But speaking of heat, the Pelicans came with their own heat. And they surprised everybody before Summer League tipped off, or was it after Summer League tipped off? I forgot what it was. It was somewhere around that time period. It was the day of their first Summer League game. They announced a Herb Jones extension, roughly 3 years, $68 million, with a player option at the end. Priority Sports, Mark Barlstein and Kieran Pill. I'm sorry. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Herb's agency got the job done.
Yes.
Herb's agency got the job done. And shout out to the Pelicans, shout out to Herb Jones, shout out to the agency for getting it done. That is a surprising move that I don't think anybody expected at this point. What are your thoughts or immediate reactions when you saw the news?
You said it perfectly. I was not surprised. I actually was in the middle of something. So I didn't.
You said you were not surprised?
I was surprised. You took the words right out of my mouth. I was in the middle of something. I got a text from my friend, and I will just edit it and say, "Let's go." And there's a word in between, and and I got to say, "Let me check this out."
Freaking go!
There you go, close enough. And I'm like, "Wait, hold on. That's two re-signing the third time here. That doesn't happen to us. Not just with him, just anyone. That doesn't happen with us." So I was pleasantly surprised and ecstatic and shocked when it happened.
Yeah, look, I think as everything that has transpired with the Pelicans this season, no one really caught a wind of what was about to happen. And so the Pelicans have done a good job of keeping things under wraps. I think I was surprised on a couple of fronts. One, obviously, just the timing of it and the announcement of it. Two, I thought there was a compelling case for Herb Jones to wait out another year before going down this route. And the case itself rests on it rests on this idea of he can only extend for 140% of his final year. And so if he extends now, then he would only be able to get 3 new years because a deal cannot be longer than 5. He has 2 remaining on his current deal. He'd get 3 new years tacked on. It'd be a total of 5, but only 3 of those would be in the new money. All right. Apparently my audio needs to be turned down a bit, or maybe I can just talk a little bit quiet. I've been yelling.
There we go.
I'll talk more quietly. But I think going back to the idea of his contract, agreeing to it now limited him to 3 years versus agreeing to it next year, he would have had the same starting salary. It still would have been 140% of his final year, but he would have gotten 4 new years instead of 3. And I thought, okay, well, when it comes to 3 versus 4, why not just get more money? His value isn't really going to drop off. So it was surprising to me that they agreed to this deal now. But the fact that they secured a player option makes it less surprising that they were willing to forego that final year.
Yeah. The player option, I think, was great for her. And also it's great for the Pelicans because now you can, in my opinion, the window is now 3 to 4 years. Trey and Herb are tied to this franchise for the next 4 years. Zion is 3. So if you're still believing you're going to build with those 3, you now have the time frame to do so, in my opinion.
Yeah, look, I think this deal makes sense regardless of what kind of timeline you got going on. And that belief, from my perspective, comes from just last podcast, we were talking about guys who impact winning. We were talking about guys who impact that plus minus. And Hurd is one of those weird guys that when you look at these stats, he's a top 10 player. He's a top 10 player when it comes to impacting the adjusted plus minus. He grades out as a roughly plus 4 type of guy, plus 4.5 type of guy, depending on what you're looking at. And you talked about last podcast, like the guys on the list that are also plus 4 type of guys are like Steph Curry and Victor Wembanyama. And so, and it's not surprising that Herb is on this list. There are always a couple of really, really awesome defenders that tend to be really high up on these metrics, and like Alex Caruso has been one of them, right? And it's you look at these lists, and it's usually like your top tier superstars like Jokic, SGA, Curry, Giannis, etc. And then the surprising names you'll see are the ones that are producing an inordinate amount of like defensive value. And Herb just grades out to be just an elite player on both ends. And surprisingly, if you look at his impact on the Pelicans, it kind of goes counter to what you believe in what Herb is, but he's a massive plus offensively for the Pelicans. The Pelicans can't score when he's not on the court. It's been so bizarre to kind of keep track of. But if you believe that he is that level of an impactful player, then locking him into a deal for the next 5 years is a no-brainer either way to me, regardless of which direction your team's going to go in, because that player is going to help you on the court or retain their value if you ever need to move on from. Alex Caruso, again, just given that example, the style of player that brings a ton of value to a contending level team. If the OKC Thunder were to try to trade him, he would probably need a lot, more than what Chicago got from him, and how are they opted to deal with him, right? A guy like Derek White is another example of someone that really pops up in these situations because they provide so much value on both ends of the court.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And cleaning the glass last year, I think he was a plus 12 on off. Just to continue to talk about how he's so valuable on the court. And a lot of it, the 2024 season he was so good in transition. He was hitting open threes, but he gets easy basket. He allows the offense to get easy, cheap baskets when it's in a muck, and that is, that helps a great deal when you sometimes have an awful half court offense.
He's also just weirdly good at finding space and getting out of space. He is, I think, someone that it's important to just differentiate him from even a guy like Jaden McDaniels, who is good at defense and has, some might say he might have like more on-ball juice than Herb Jones in creative ability, but like the way Herb's offensive impact ends up manifesting itself is just that he's just so intuitive about how he's operating within a 5-man framework that it just uplifts the game of everybody else. And obviously Willie Green always talks about how defense flows into offense, and that fuels your transition game, semi-transition game, all that stuff. Sure, we get that. But even in the half court, Herb's been remarkably useful despite teams daring him to shoot. And there's been games where he's looked those teams in the eye and snatched it. And like, yeah, sure, dare me to shoot. I will. I'll do it. I'll do it.
It's not used as much, but he's really good in dribble handoffs as well. Or he'll set a screen on the second side to get shooters open. Like, he does so many little things that you don't see in the offense that helps a great deal to help our scorers get points as well.
Well, they've even started using him to bring the ball up the court, and that by nature like lifts the offense, right? Because if you have someone, like if you're putting a center on him, and the idea is like, okay, well, the center's going to cheat off him, hang in the paint, or whatever. If he's bringing the ball up the court, that by definition requires teams to pay additional attention to him in those kind of situations. But yeah, I mean, look, he's a really, really good player, and this is a really fair deal. I think, obviously, if you haven't checked out the article I wrote about it, check out the article. But one of the things I commented is that people need to adjust their framework when it comes to salaries and look at percentage of the cap. His current deal was 8 to 9% of the cap, which is a tiny, tiny, tiny amount. And with this new raise, it jumps all the way up to 12%. Wow, that's so much money. And 12%, it's so funny because uh, the rookie maximum for reference is 25%. So it's
Yes.
less than half of a rookie max, right? The veteran max is 30%, and
Oh no, did I lose
a
Shamit?
third of that.
There we go.
Did you lose me?
No, you're here. You're good. Just a couple seconds. Go ahead. You good. Keep rolling.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, like, it's a third of like the veteran max. So it's not, it's a paltry number for a very, very good player, and it's not going to be a deal that is going to be immovable. He's going to be 30, 31 by the time he's making that kind of money, and that's still going to be well within his prime, if not the tail end of it. And that's, yeah, I mean, for a player who is, we've seen a ton of defenders age very, very gracefully. So I'm a believer in this being a very, very fruitful deal moving forward. The question I had for you was, if you were in Herb's shoes, would you have taken this deal as it was presented, or would you have tried to game it out where you were hidden free agency and then you'd be eligible for a lot more money and not constrained by the 140% rule?
Well, it's sort of different, but one of the conversations me and Schmidt will always have offline is I would always try to extend when I have 2 years left, especially if I was like a max player, to get to my 10 years. I still have that same philosophy with this, even though it isn't getting him to that number. If you can get the most money you can, especially coming off an injury, I would rather you tell me your agent is crazy and I have that safety net of $60-something million than taking the chance again, because especially hitting free agency, as you put in your article, but it's evident by Quentin Grimes and Jonathan Kuminga, even though they're restricted free agents, there's not many dollars out there in a free agent market for you to try to take the chance. So if you're offered the maximum amount of money you can get, snatch it and deal with the rest later. And it's normally, in Herb's instance, it's a team friendly contract, so you'll still have that value on the other end, but you can find a team to play for if it goes to, if you're going to be on a winner or not. I would have taken it and ran with it and cashed my check for the next 5 years.
It's a player friendly contract too, with that player option. I think it's important to point out that during the entirety of David Griffin's tenure, they didn't hand out a single player option. And that was intentional. That was by design. The max players didn't get one. Trey Murphy didn't get one. CJ McCollum didn't get one. Larry Nance didn't get one. So, that was very, very much by design. And now you're seeing a different way of things operating. And this group seeded that player option because it allowed them to lock in Herb now and immediately. And I think that was a good piece of business, because you don't have to be dug in on this idea of no player option. I think the player option really, really burns you when it's a player that's making over 20% of the cap towards the max, right? If it was Zion, if it was Brandon Ingram, those player options can really hurt you because they're making an extreme dollar mark. Even with Trey, I think, it would have been, I think Trey's a player that's going to retain value no matter what. But it's one of these situations where if Trey had a player option, that contract becomes skewed more in the balance of the player than it does with the team. When it comes to someone like Herb Jones making 12% of the cap, giving that player option, but retaining him and locking him over 5 years, that is a fair trade and a smart trade. I would do the same thing if I was the Pelicans.
Absolutely. I see no problem with it.
The natural question that comes with that is, we had talked in previous podcasts about Herb Jones's trade value, especially, because he was in rumors, baseless rumors, I must say, because again, none of that was coming from the Pelicans. But this idea of there's 2 years left on Herb's deal, there's a window to kind of maximize any kind of trade value if that's the route that you're going down, right? Because once a player becomes an expiring, we've seen over and over again that value plummets because teams really, really value having those additional years of control if it's a reasonable contract. And so, do you think prior to this extension, with only 2 years left, Herb has more trade value, or Herb has more trade value a year from now when he becomes trade eligible again, and he'd have 4 years left on his deal. One of those which being the cheaper amount, 3 of those being the larger amount, the final year being a player option. Which scenario do you think he holds more trade value?
I think the most would be next year when he's still less than the MLE. I believe you could slot him into the MLE if you're a team next year. So I believe that'll be the most trade value. But he will still retain high trade value for until he's the year before his player option kicks in. So the most absolutely next year when you can slot him in your MLE, and even that possibility you don't have to take any money back and you just retain draft assets will be the highest, but it won't get much lower. You just may have to take back quote unquote bad money in return at once his extension kicks in.
Is there a level of play he needs to maintain for that to be the case, right? Like, is there a world where his play next year just isn't quite like where it used to be or whatever it may be, and you don't hold that position of, okay, well, he is more valuable next year? Like, what's the baseline level of play you're expecting from him?
The baseline level of play I'm expecting him is 36% from 3. All his funky stuff that makes him a great a player that gives offensive value and the top level defense. I would hope, shouts out to our guy Nola Analytics, he starts reaching that 7-8 threes per 100 possessions plateau that guys like Alex Caruso hit before he got traded. That would give him more. Lou Dort that would give him more trade value. Just side note, I'm starting to hate Aaron Judge. Anyway, but yes, that would be peak trade value. That will bring it up, but just 5 to 6 per 100 at 36% from 3, and all the scoring off transition, being the best perimeter defender in the NBA. That's what I expect.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, I want to bring the conversation back to your point about like the team building in the window. So you said you view the core as Zion, Trey, and Herb now. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement, yes.
Okay. And
let me change it. Trey, Herb, Zion in that order.
Okay. That's a fair clarification. Where, I guess, if there's a world where they do end up moving off Zion in about a year or so, do you feel differently about this deal? And do you feel differently about who the core is and what direction they need to go?
Would I feel different with the core? Probably not, because those guys are still the vets. I will understand if people will say the younger guys will be thought of more. But the 2021 Wings have been the foundation of this team for the last couple years. And they have been my core since Trey's ascension in his sophomore season. I put a stat out there from PBP stats that they've been like a +5 together since their rookie years. So to me, they've been the foundation of this team for the last 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I agree there, because those two guys are players that may not be your one.
And one more. They're malleable. You can fit them with almost any superstar. The funny part was they were good with Brandon. They were good with Zion. Even if they weren't together, those two played well with said star on the court. So that's why I would call them the foundation pieces, the core of this team.
Yeah, you stole my point as I was about to make it. I was going to say is that Zion or not, they're not going to be guys that interfere with any kind of team construction that you're going for. And so if this team decides a year from now, hey, we're going to turn Zion into another guy. Those two are going to fit with that other guy. Yep. If this team decides, wow, Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen are really, really, really good, those two guys are going to fit with those two other guys, right?
Yep.
And so I agree with this notion that, okay, now you have bought yourself more time to work those together as a duo, and to build the team around them in whatever way, shape you need to. They've also given themselves an ability to go younger if with Fears and Queen, and they've also given themselves the ability to continue to ride with Zion if he ends up being the guy he was when he was healthy last year, and he ends up being that for 60, 70 games a year. I think that those are all things that make a lot of sense. We can talk about Summer League and the younger guys a little bit now, I think. And the Pelicans played the Timberwolves, and they started Fears, Antonio Reeves, Micah Peavy, Derek Queen, and Yves Missi. Just general first impressions on that game.
Summer League is Summer League, so you can only give so much about it. I normally look at individuals more than the team aspect. Since we were talking about the rooks, Fears really impressed me. His patience, he seemed mature beyond his years. He was still able to get to the paint. Unfortunately, had a volleyball player play center for the T-Wolves, and he was bouncy and athletic and was really controlling the paint. But his passing impressed me, even though he had turnovers. Like his vision that he can see the play transpire and attempt that pass was really stood out. The defense is the defense, and since I'm talking about the defense being a defense, Derek Queen, the impressive nature. I may be talking too much, but I'm gonna stop after him. The especially the second half offense was really good, and the defense was, brother, you got to give us something. I mean, I would credit it to being Summer League, but if people who had issues with his motor and his effort, they have more evidence to have issues with it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of those. Let's talk about Fears first. I think there were a couple of wow plays that he had that I was like, oh, I didn't see much of this at Oklahoma, and part of it is because of who he played with. So he had a couple of lob attempts to Yves, and when he saw those lobs materializing and his commitment to those, I was like, oh, like he sees it before everybody else. And that's not a quality that many Pelicans guards have had in the recent past. And so I'm excited to see that in action when there's a Trey Murphy spacing out to the corner. So the weak side guy can't, tag as well.
Yes.
If there's a Zion occupying a certain spot on the floor and four heads are turned his direction, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
The passes, a few of the turnovers that you talked about that he had were him just being better than the people he was passing to. To put it nicely.
Yes.
To put it nicely. And so I expect if he's passing to Herb Jones or Zion to Murph, any of these guys, like it's going to look better. And so,
one pass in particular, the one to Lester Quinez or whatever, that it was a quote unquote miss. And my first thought was, if that's Zion or Herb in the dunker spot, he's going to see that cut probably earlier than even Jeremiah does, and it's going to be easy a lob or a lay-in. So that's exactly how my mind went.
Yeah, and so good on him. The next game, I want to see him get downhill more. I thought he was trying to be a little bit too much of a point guard, which is again not a bad thing. But I'm like, just cook. It's Summer League, baby. I just want to see you ball. I just want to see you hoop. Just cook that guy in front of you. That's okay. Just clear out if you have to.
Get us 30. We all feel better about ourselves, baby. Everybody feel good if you get us for 30.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and yeah, exactly. And James brings up a great point that he was talking constantly. Like he was just, you could tell like this kid just gets it, and I hope that continues. Um, the guy that you didn't really talk about, Eve Misi, the second year player, the featured
Mm-hmm.
player. I thought he
Yeah.
had some good up and down moments. I thought his motor shined.
Yes.
This guy has a motor you can't turn off. It's
Yep.
relentless. He will always attack the glass. He'll go chase after shots. He'll run in transition. He'll set screens when he can't. Whatever. He's gonna fly up and down the court. Um, he looked uncomfortable in space when the ball was thrown deep to him in the paint, and he was forced to make a decision that wasn't just immediately go up and dunk. Things looked clunky, and he got his shot blocked by Berger a couple times. I asked him in practice today, did you and Berger exchange anything in French? He was like, oh yeah, he's talking in French. He even blocked some of my shots in French. um, but he's like, that's okay, I'm gonna get him back, and he's like, I'll see him in the regular season. And so I love that attitude. But that looked tough, and so I think Eves just never. I mean, I don't know. Never's a strong word. It's going to be a while before Eve is a guy that you can hit in a short roll and be like, hey, if it's not an immediate decision, you feel comfortable about like what's about to happen here.
Yeah.
Same thing with regards to like finishing issues and finishing over length and strength. Like I think there's been this talk of like, oh, Eve looks so much bigger. Eve looks so much bigger, and I think people have to be like logical that you can live in the gym for the last 2-3 months. There's only a finite amount of strength and weight
Yes.
that you can put on, and the season hasn't been over for that long. And so he has a long summer ahead of him that where he'll continue to add and stuff, and I'm sure media day will hear he put on 15 pounds of muscle. I believe it. But that's not something I'm like concerned with today. In the future, if it's an issue, then we'll revisit that. Defensively, I thought he was fine, but it's summer league. It's summer league, and
exactly. Go ahead.
he even talked about it, and he was like, "Look, the summer league is just different than the NBA. Like everyone's kind of playing a little more selfishly. Like he's like in the NBA, like I know." Like what Trey's doing, what Zion's doing. We have all these sets, we have all these schemes. We're all like we have a specific job to do. Here he's like, people just coming out here to compete. Like it's just different. So it's difficult for guys like him to like truly pop off. But he had a double double,
Yep.
which is I thought he looked fine. It would have been concerning if he looked terrible.
Yes.
And yeah, he looked fine. Thoughts? I'm saving the Derek Queen discussion till the end. Thoughts on Micah Peavy?
I thought he looked fine for his first impression. I thought he played really well on and off ball. On defensively, the shot fell, so that also helped his stat line. But he played fine. He played like he belonged in at least summer league. Like he belonged on the court. He didn't look lost to me. About yourself?
Yeah, again, another guy with a ton of motor. Picked up 7 fouls. You only do that when you're playing hard.
Yeah.
I think I don't care at all about fouls in summer league. Offensively, he found a way to put points on the board. He found a way to get rebounds. He's a fun guy. He excites me. I think I said it on.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I said on Blue Sky, I'm like, he kind of reminds me of Thabo Cephalosha, man. Hopefully he can be a little bit better offensively, but Thabo was a dog in OKC and in Atlanta. I mean, he was just like a defensive menace.
You can feel him in one point in particular. A lot of people may not pay attention. He boxed out someone who had to have a good 3-4 inches on him and cleared the way. I don't much know who got the rebound. I was focused on him making space, creating space. So that dude, I knew who was not going to get the rebound. It was anybody in Minnesota, and I appreciate that a great deal, especially from as much as we love the wings. Not too keen on boxing out and getting boards. So
you just running our crashing into people.
Yes,
I love it.
Yes, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Go ahead. You were there.
If you have something more to say about him,
no, not about him.
Go to Queen.
No, I want to talk about one more person before we get to Queen. Antonio Reeves still looks like the end of last year guy that I really, really like. He's got that little floater that works. He still comes off screens. He didn't hit a shot, but he got an open look, and it looked as fluid as it did before, in the regular season. He also had a little more on the ball juice, and I think he got a layup one time, getting in the lane. Just there's another guy on this team. We'll understand why it won't financial reasons, but I really already missed Antonio not being on this team. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
And I hope he gets a job in the league.
Yeah, he's a guy that's had a 30 ball in the NBA already, which is, say what you want about that Cleveland game. Like, he had a 30 ball in the NBA. That's what he did. No one can take that away from him. I wish he was a little more aggressive. Offensively, he might just be the quote unquote best player offensively on that team right now, just due to pure experience.
Yeah. Yep.
But I also understand him recognizing, like, hey, this is the drafted player show. I just got waived by this team. I'm just gonna play my role. The waiver, I don't think it wasn't terribly upsetting to me on a personal level. Their Pelicans only have one roster spot to give, and so they chose not to give that to him. They're holding it open. I think there's a number of directions they can go. If he ends up signing on a two-way, that'd be great. If he ends up coming back later, that's also fine. It's fine, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Derek Queen, 13, 10, 7 turnovers. Yeah. So I think you already touched on it. There's going to be a tendency to look at the box score. What?
That boy nice.
That boy is nice. That boy is really nice. That boy's nice. That's the end of discussion. That's it, folks. No, I'm joking. There's going to be a tendency to look at his box score and be like, hey, you did solid. You did fine. I think anybody who watched that game came away rightfully disappointed in his effort just on both ends. There was a lot of just standing around, a lot of ball watching, a lot of not getting involved.
Yep.
And that's tough. And I think, look, the criticisms on him during the draft circuit while he was going through his workouts was that he was exactly what you saw in Vegas, which is out of shape, low motor, and all of that. And the low motor and the ball watching and stuff was persistent throughout his time in Maryland. So I think it's fair to say this is who he is at this point. He is a low motor player who ball watches. I don't know if there's a ton of examples in the league where people switch flipped, but I think there are a few things that are going for him that will help. One, it's clear that he's not in the best shape that he can possibly be, and that's okay, because if he wasn't in shape during the draft circuit, and if he wasn't in shape during the combine, expecting him to turn it around in just a course of a few weeks and be ready for summer league is a difficult ask. That's not a fair ask. We saw Zion come into the Vegas summer league out of shape, and then he came into the preseason just a few months later looking like an absolute god. And before he tore that meniscus, it was unbelievable what we were watching, both from a physical and just everything else standpoint.
It hurts.
Man, we were robbed.
We were robbed of such greatness. I still remember that Utah game. I was there in the preseason, and my God, he was just a man child. Anyway, back to
after Rudy Gobert.
We're not opening that wound. We're going back to Derek. Let's go.
So I think the positive thing with Derek is that he has many months to get himself into much better physical shape. And if he is a player that takes that seriously, he'll be able to accomplish it. Yep. It's the pathway is there for him. What that will allow him to do is, I think that will allow him to access the bright spots of his game. And the bright spots of his game are very bright. He had a number of very, very good passes.
Yep.
That he made. He had a number of, that boy nice. Type moves.
That boy nice.
And so, my focus for him would be just getting in the best possible shape he can be in and working on ball handling. Because
Yes.
clearly this is going to be a player who is going to work best with the ball in his hands, beating guys off the dribble, creating advantages. And there was just 3 or 4 times in that game where he tried to beat someone off the dribble. He spun backwards and he would just lose the ball. And then he would just, it wasn't even like someone came to poke it out. It was just losing the handle. So that's something I think he can very much tighten up, and that's achievable for him. But all in all, I would say a pretty disappointing debut. Do you have different opinions of his outcome as an NBA player or ceiling in general after just watching this?
No.
Okay, well, what are your opinions of him as an future NBA player?
As a future NBA player, I think that he is a very gifted, very skilled big man who can get his own and be an offensive option for others. He did some. He tried to do some DHO stuff, as well in this game, not just off the bounce. Even though the off the bounce stuff, had its ups and downs. I'm not gonna let his first summer league game sway me one way or the other. And I've had personally my expectations on his rookie season are probably lower than most because he's going to have to understand the strength of bigs in this game and the length of bigs in this game. And I will say my expectation will be lower probably than most before this summer league game. So I'm disappointed because all the bad things that came out were evident on the court, but they didn't lower my expectations at all.
What would you want to see from him just this next game?
Give more effort when he doesn't have the ball in his hand. He's going to miss. He's going to lose people off ball. All rookies do. He's going to, turn the ball over a few times trying things. That's understandable. I just want to see the effort levels on both ends be up a bit. Box a couple people out. Don't jump immediately when you see a ball handler on defense, getting a decent set, like small things of that nature. And then do some more TBN stuff to make me smile.
What does TBN stand for the people who don't know?
Excuse me. That boy nice.
A lot of the conversation. I think I've said this somewhere, maybe even on this podcast, but a lot of conversation around him is like, this is what the dialogue around Boogie Cousins was. Just the first few parts of his career. Now, Boogie had the benefit of being on a team that was his team. The Kings. He was the guy on the Kings for many number of years, and that allowed him to pile up a bunch of stats. It allowed him to fail in any which way he needed to fail. It also allowed him to pile up a bunch of losses under his belt. Queen is more than likely not going to come in with that level of freedom. There's a number. We talked about Zion, talked about Herb, talked about Trey, Jordan Poole. There's a number of offensive options in front of him already. But it's also a team with, I think, more aspirational goals than.
Yes.
Well, I'm sure the Kings had great goals. I'm sure they had the best of intentions, but we'll leave that there.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's a team that is very much like looking to compete this next season. Mm-hmm. And it's a team that's also coming in with a solid veteran structure, with Kavan, with Jordan, with Herb, all these guys. And so, I do think there is a pathway for Queen to course correct, much sooner than some of the other guys that's been comped to. Like Zebo early in his career, he bounced around before he finally settled down in Memphis. And you're like, obviously the talent's there, but is he there? He fell into 13-10, looking like the most disinterested player on the court.
He's so skilled. He's so skilled. It's crazy.
And he was like he had an argument for being the best playmaker out there behind Fears.
And everyone saw the play where he did an up fake and just like meandered his way straight to the basket. And he's so skilled at that size. The behind the back pass to the two-way big. You just don't see that type Hunter. Yeah, you don't see that type of interior passing from someone that young.
Immediate decision making, right? Immediate.
Quick.
Shot blocker came. He's like, "Psych, here you go behind the back."
Like, that boy nice.
Listeners, you're gonna get used to us saying that a lot this season. That is how we're gonna watch these games because that is the best lens to watch them through. The last thing I want to say is that I thought Gilbert Arenas actually had a really good point about Queen, which is shocking because I think Arenas has the worst takes on everything and everything. Every time I see a clip from his podcast, I'm like, I'm just mad. Like, I don't want to see this. But he actually had a really good.
Dear audio guys, you didn't see my face furl up when he said Gilbert Arenas had a good point. He did. I refuse to believe that.
He did. And he said Queen's the classic kind of player who doesn't show up in workouts because in workouts he's slow, he's unathletic, like what is he going to show? But he's someone that pops during a game. Very much like Jokic. His thing was, what is Jokic going to show you in a 1-on-0 workout? What's he going to show you in a controlled setting? When you get to the game, you're like, oh my God, this guy's a wizard. Now, not saying that Queen is Jokic in any capacity.
Nope.
But I do think there is an element of truth that there are some players where it's like, yeah, they're not cut out for workouts. But when the lights turn on, you really recognize like what kind of skill they have and where they fit into the overall puzzle. So I hope for everybody's sake that Queen doesn't get discouraged. He said he's out for redemption this next game. I hope he doesn't put too much pressure on himself.
Yeah. Love the self-awareness. Don't beat yourself up. And don't put the pressure. And I'm speaking about an athlete, and I know they're gonna feel the opposite. You didn't trade the 2026 unprotected pick. You were good enough to be the 13th pick, and you deserve to be the 13th pick. And just play.
Yeah,
that's it.
Control what you can control, right? Like that's all it is. So I'm excited. I'm excited for this next game tomorrow. Hopefully, there's hopefully we got to see a lot of that boy nice moments. From the young rooks.
Hey, go subscribe to the Substack and get in the subby so you can get more of that boy nice content that we had in there.
Yeah. While you're at it, hit the like button. Just do it right now. Just hit the like button on this video if you're watching. Just hit it right now.
Hit it right now. Hit the bell so you would have got this one live immediately. You would have been in there, and you'll get the next one when we come out. Out spur the moment. You'll get the next one. Why rely on our word about? You already get it by hitting the bell after you subscribe.
Let's take it home.
We take it home. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Be as nice as that boy. Fears. Those boys. Fears.
Super dope.
Super dope boys. Fears. And Derek Queen. Be easy.